Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Drip Drop Distro Studio. I want to thank you guys for being here with us. I also want to thank my guests today, and we got a couple recurring characters, but somebody new. So first, we have Brett Lyons. You guys have seen him before, episode 2, I believe. We got the master of disaster, Troy Palmer. He's back again. And the new guy we have, he kind of is a split dude. He's in 2 different groups in this building, okay? It's Tori Roberts. And Tori is another Samoan. They're coming out of our ears at this point. Yep. And he's also team X Walmart. Okay. So welcome, Tori. Welcome, Troy. Welcome, Brett. Thank you guys for being here. Today's
Can
episode,
we call?
Oh, go ahead.
Can we call Tori FNG?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure. For sure.
New guy.
Yep.
All right.
Well, today's episode is retail, and you guys are all retail guys. We touched on retail the last time we were here, and Troy was kind of the main insight of that at the table. But this time around, we got a couple experts. This is Experts 2.0. So yeah, first off, I wanted to cover brands and why it's important to carry certain types of brands over others. I know that a lot of times when you're in a smaller shop or a smaller retail setting, you're giving you're getting inundated with samples and you're giving a lot of brands a chance. But why are the staples important? And I'll start that with Tori, actually.
As a buyer, I used to be a buyer for what is now Jackson's Bevco. It was called TBCO in the past. It was about 67-ish smoke shops. And then I was the buyer for all the stinker gas stations. I always operated on a good, better, best model.
Sure.
So good and better were where you gave brands a chance, but best had to be the most popular. What's going to drive the traffic? Like, yeah, it'll be a little bit more expensive. We have cheaper options, but you have to have that premier brand. Like at Stinker, it was like Escobar for vapes and like Hyde, because those were kind of the top 2 most popular in the area, and those are the ones I targeted for the top tier stuff.
Sure.
And then for value, I went with lesser known brands, but you're like, hey, it's $14, not 20. So just on that good, better, best model is that's where it's important to kind of, the best has to be something that's super popular.
Sure. And how do you vet those? I mean, obviously the best is kind of common knowledge, but how do you vet the other ones?
I know a lot of vape shop owners and industry people from the time I've been in this industry. So gauging that wasn't generally difficult for me because we all knew which guys were at the top. They'll tell you about it all day at every show.
So networking and resources
Research.
in terms of, I feel like talking to store owners is the best thing you can do.
Yep.
I mean,
what's really working for you guys, and you ask enough of a sample size about that, and it's pretty easy to figure out which ones are at the top and what you have to choose from.
Sure. So to kind of turn it to Brett here, big box is a little bit different. What kind of, I guess, similarities do you see between, I mean, obviously we know like Coke, Reese's Pieces, like things like that, but inside of this kind of like counterculture space, what kind of similarities, I guess, and differences do you see between the big main players in somewhere like Walmart versus somewhere like Oasis Stop and Go in Twin Falls?
I see across big box to small business, the one thing is true, and that's consumer behavior.
Sure.
Right. And the almighty dollar is what drives consumer behavior. So when you talk about brands, you've always got to have the Coke, Pepsi, right? You've always got to have the Hush, right? You've always got to have those things. But there are big niches for other items. I think I believe it's brilliant to always have the good or the opening price point or the lowest price one, because a lot of people always like, oh, I can get 3,000 hits for $5. Or, I don't want to spend 15, so I'm just going to try that. Everybody will do it. The best thing is that's the best investment for you because you still make money, and they're going to try a cheap piece of crap, and they're not going to like it, so they're never going to buy it again. They're always going to spend the better money.
Sure,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great strategy to always have that because it always gets you into the higher price points, but there's still always a customer that they're looking underneath the seat in the car for the quarter to buy the one that they want, the cheap one. So. But as far as brands go, I think that you should always go to your peers and see. You can tell instantly when you walk into a store what sells.
Yeah.
Because there's either a lot of it or there's none of it. right?
Sure.
It's either they load up or you can tell people are buying it. And you might walk in a store and this whole thing's full and you haven't seen anybody buy it in 5 times that you've been there. So, that doesn't work, but always paying attention to what consumers go after is the right thing. But on brands, the thing that I'd be careful of is getting too deep into one brand.
Yeah.
Because then you own, the 500 flavors of Coke and you don't have shelf space for the Pepsis.
Sure.
Right.
So you got to diversify. And
Yeah,
be
there's
smart.
a real good balance there. There's a real good balance. But I always think that there's a place for, I don't want to say a white label, but a store brand.
Mhm.
Right. We sell a lot of brands of stuff, but hey, we partnered with Boulevard.
Yep.
Patent pending. We partnered with them, and that's our thing. So people are like, "Oh, you got this, right?" Yeah, but hey, for the price and the value, I can offer you this, and I know what my customer wants. I know the features they're looking for, whatever. Boom, and we can hit them with that. And the same thing with Kratom.
Yeah.
So I think across all of the items, the good, better, best, or the pricing tiers. What you don't want is 5,000 of the cheapest things. That's a huge mistake because it's all trash and nobody's going to want to use it.
Then you're the dollar store.
Becomes
Yeah.
dead inventory at the end of the day.
And nobody trusts it. And so it's going to erode your customer loyalty.
Yeah. And with just to get some of Troy's insight, actually. So when you opened up Variety back in whatever year that was, 2013 or 12 or something.
1846.
Yeah, it was a very long time ago.
You nailed it, 13 probably.
You drove your Clydesdale to work. Yeah, when you
live there.
Yes. So when you when you opened that place up, there wasn't a lot of peers like Tori mentioned to go call and ask. You were kind of in the really early forefront of it. How did you kind of just hope for the best? Because I know back in the day it was like if you had Suicide Bunny, you were gonna fucking sell Suicide Bunny, and that's old school shit.
Yep.
If anybody's like
Mother's milk.
yes, it was that built stores. It was kind of nuts, and we all know that when that was retailing for what was it like? Between $20 and $30,
$25, $30.
They're making it
right?
for 80 cents. There's a crazy time in vape, but outside of that, I mean, that was kind of the one that everybody knew about. How did you vet things coming through?
Well, it was a huge hit and miss on those days because there was new products coming out every day, new suppliers coming out every day in China. And so, I mean, back then I worked a lot with suppliers because a lot of stuff that we sold in the store back then was open units and there wasn't a lot of companies that had brands on the market that were doing much. And so a lot of that stuff was getting bought through China and
Sure.
you were working with the Chinese manufacturers to find out what new they had coming out. And I'd usually buy 1 or 2 units and bring them in and start slow and work my way up based on feedback I got from the customers as I worked with them and never put too much money into one SKU until I knew that it was a hit and people liked it. And then I'd go along on it and heavier on it at that point. But nowadays, the market's matured so much more. That's not as much of a thing anymore. There are still a lot of new brands coming out constantly and things like that. But most of the suppliers now have improved to the point where there's a lot of good product on the market.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's not as hard to find quality product, but where it is hard to find sometimes is with the regulations and stuff that come in. You lose good turns on products that you've already got you're selling because they become so popular that. Somebody, powers that be, decide that product shouldn't be on the market anymore and they get removed. And we see that regularly in our industry. And
we've seen it time and time again, just shit getting
it's
rug
a
pulled.
constant circle.
Or the company decides not to file a PMTA.
Yeah.
And then you can't sell it to larger companies. They won't carry it.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of them are requiring that.
So that it's becoming more and more, you got to do a lot of research, got to ask a lot of questions, and you got to make sure that what you're vetting and bringing in, you're going to be able to sell through and not be sitting on and have to get rid of because that hurts a small store, especially buying a bunch of inventory that they think they can sell through and then all of a sudden they have to remove it. That sometimes they can take a pretty big hit on that scenario. So it's good to make sure you work with people that you vetted and that know what they're selling and you've got the paperwork on it, and especially in this environment these days. Don't you agree, Tori?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to cross your T's and dot your I's, and it's not to say it's like plug and play nowadays, but it's so much easier. Back then there was so much crazy shit going. I remember like the LE80s. You remember those?
Yep.
First variable. It was like one of the first ones I ever saw manufactured here, like in the Valley, or at least brought here.
I was excited to get mine, man.
Yeah, and the phone cases. Do you remember those ones?
I
I know
do.
you know. I know you remember that.
Back in those days, I used to literally buy one of everything. If I was placing an order, they had the factory I was buying through stuff with. I'd say, give me one of everything.
Sure.
And I'd bring it in and I'd test it and I'd vet it and I'd say, yeah, this isn't going to work. And basically a lot of it was off of my experience in the vape industry already from, working in it already and using the products for a few years. I felt like I had an opinion that I could trust and it takes a little bit of time working in that industry to figure a lot of that out, but
Sure.
it was a lot of it was hit and miss for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I got relics laying around, I'm sure.
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I feel
got
like
a
we all
closet
do.
full of 'em.
Yeah, a whole bunch. Well, you had you had people throwing shit at you. That's how we met. Actually,
Yeah.
it was me.
Yeah.
I was making juice and selling it out of my trunk, and
Yep.
Troy.
Busted him selling it out in front of my store.
Yeah, you did. And Troy then offered. He said to me, well, why don't you just fucking make me a batch of this shit and put it in a bottle, put a label on it. If that wouldn't have happened, I don't know if who knows what I'd be doing because
Still not sure if you like me over it, huh?
No, we haven't figured that part out yet. But that's going to lead me to like the next point I want to get at, which is you mentioned a lot that, vendor, I guess maybe clearing your vendor and making sure that they're legitimate, and then educating yourself on what's out there selling and educating yourself on what's doing well and what's turning. But that kind of leads into just product knowledge in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that something that is missed sometimes when people are trying to sell to stores, and this is, I'm not a retail guy, I'm not even a sales guy. This is just kind of an outsider's perspective, but making sure that people that work at the store know what the thing is that you're selling to them.
Yeah.
How do you do that, and how important is it? Brett, you want to touch that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, knowledge is power. And to give somebody knowledge, whether it be the person working at the counter or the person buying the product, makes them feel confident either in the sale or in buying the product. The more that a shop owner knows and can explain, and then have their people know, anybody can put a insert brand name here t-shirt and try and sell stuff that way, but it doesn't get a consumer to know. And
yeah, well, and it's like there's a whole chain of information that kind of has to happen to get all the way to the customer. And I feel like if you're engaging also, not just educating an owner or a purchaser, but if you're going in to do sets, like this is something I'm sure Tori's done. You're going to do sets in a store and you're going to do a reset, or you're going to do some sort of training. If you can get like the manager or the cashiers at that store on your side,
Yeah.
and you treat them with respect and with dignity, and you educate them about your product, and you spiff them or whatever it takes.
Yeah, I was going to say when Brett was talking, the things that we like to do and have done in the past is we'll do, he mentioned T-shirts. We'll do the brand T-shirts for them to wear behind the counter, and that helps promote the brand. And people ask questions, and then if they have a T-shirt and they're wearing it, you tend to get on board with the product. But then we also do spiffs, or we do reward programs, scenarios for larger chains that have rewards programs where we'll say, okay, if you sell 5 of these, you can do one for free to that customer on your rewards program.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of creative ways
supporting
to
their program.
to support those at a distribution level, but at a store level, those are all programs that people should consider doing also, because they do retain customer retention very well. And it brings, loyal customers into the store, and they get to know your products. And then people behind the counter learn more from the consumers that are come in and buy it on a regular basis.
And they can give you feedback,
because they get conversations and have conversations about why you like that brand or why you like this brand, and it just helps educate everybody on that side of it.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, we have a customer locally that operates a store that's the size of this studio.
Yeah.
And that's one of our better customers. And that 95% of that person's business is Kratom.
Yep.
So this person,
I know what you're talking about,
was a Kratom user, and that person you walk in and here's 32 varieties in jars, and you can buy it by the gram, and and so this person is, I would say, I'm not going to say is an expert, but this person knows what's up with Kratom, right? And so that gives confidence to the customer. When you look at C-stores and smoke shops, they want to get into Kratom because they know there's sales. So imagine that this little shop that's 30 by 20 probably does more sales than their smoke shops do, and all they sell is kratom.
Yeah, it's
And
incredible.
if they took it as serious and trained their people to be able to take it as serious, they could, do so much more with their business.
Yeah, they could do a version of that.
Instead of just saying, you know what, I got a display and it's got kratom in it.
Sure.
Well, that's one thing that's different about Drip Drop too. I'm basically the resident trainer around here.
I was going to ask you, because you've done this kind of stuff, how would you tackle that out there?
Well, I mean, back when I was buying for TV Co, I wrote something called The Vapor's Guide to the Galaxy, which still exists
Sure.
in the Big Smoke and Tobacco Connection stores. And half of it is still the original stuff that I wrote.
Yeah.
Is that going into a movie?
Yes,
Are they
it
making
is.
that into
Yep.
it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tori's getting
We're licensing
royalties.
it right now.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
I just see a spaceship that looks like a vape.
Yeah, a
Vape
boulevard.
device.
Yeah, a 6K just floating through the, yeah.
What flavor? Anyways.
And then, like, when I was there, we had yearly meetings where every single manager from all 5 states that they were in would show up, and all of the, like, us category managers and upper management people would teach a class. And it would go in shifts of like 20 people. And empowering your managers, and it's a trickle down effect, because the idea is that they go also repeat that information to the employees at the store.
Sure.
And so, like, that was one form of training that we did a lot. The other one that I appreciate that we do here, like Vapor Maven. I've trained 170 Vapor Maven store managers, and I built training materials for them. It's always going to make the product sell better if you know what it is, why it's better. Like, I mean, if you look at Hush, for example, like, why is a nano shot more expensive than a platinum shot when platinum shot is stronger? Well, then all of the Hush shots, except for nano, take about 40 minutes to kick in. The nano shot takes about 8 to 10 minutes to kick in, and that's because of the formulation of it. Empowering, the employees and the managers with that knowledge helps them suggest the right products. And when you can do that, it builds trust with the customer. So
Sure.
like, they're going to come back and be like, that guy knew what he was talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I'm totally going to come back for that, because if I need it for a different reason next time, like this, I just need energy. So cool,
Sure.
try a Hush energy shots, lower dose, but more energy. But knowledge is power, and that's 100% of what it is when you train people. If you properly train people on your products and they understand it inside and out, they're going to recommend the right products to the right customers.
Sure. And that falls into the kind of the responsibility of both parties. Like at Drip Drop, we're actively as a distributor going out and teaching people who are willing to learn, but it should also be part of you as a store owner or a chain of stores to make sure that that's either happening by your distributors or you're doing it. It's super crucial.
At the detriment of your wallet at the end of the day, if you don't train your people, because you can't have good sales if you don't have knowledgeable people behind the counter to help out with that.
If you got somebody like Tori, or just anybody who's got a little bit of knowledge in doing sets and doing retail, or being a procurement guy for a big chain of stores like that, you should lean into them for it. I'm sure they'd be willing to help you. They'd be willing to work on. That's some people get excited like Tori about teaching. I'm sure that you enjoy it. It sounds like you do.
Yeah,
so yeah, I mean, it's not a mountain, it's a molehill, and I feel like. Because if I left right now and I went down to a gas station down the road and I asked the person behind the counter about, the backwoods wraps and why those are better than these ones, they have no idea. They don't give a shit. They're there to get paid, and they're there to, sweep later. They don't give a fuck. But in these kind of mom and pop shops, or like a place like Vapor Maven, a big chain store like that, where it's a chain store, but it's still, it's not big box, but it's, those type of places, it's a lot easier to do. I feel like, or it's not a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier to get them on board with you if you show a presence and you show that you care. But let's move along. The next thing I want to touch on is kind of off the back of that. It's like you can educate people, but also merchandising and placing product. I guess the people who have formulated or figured out the formula of that are, I would say probably Walmart's the best, or they're up there. Brett and Tori both worked there, so
there's a
some
science to it for sure.
They understand the
One of
science.
us much more successfully than the other.
Well, what's
because you got out.
what's the psychology behind merchandising in general? But then, I mean, we can talk about Walmart, but then take that and then shrink it down to maybe a guy that just opened up a vape shop or a smoke shop or a head shop. And why is merchandising in general important, but why is also product placement up front important, like near the register or in the back or in this order? You want to kind of educate us?
I mean, there's a lot of science behind it. It's so funny when I walk into some of our customer shops and I'm back into my 30 years of retail going, nope. And, I got notes going in and I'm like,
Sure.
oh, I don't work here. That's whatever, bro.
You're doing work on your,
I would say that they need to pay attention to how they shop.
sure.
A shop owner, if they go to the grocery store, they go to the liquor store, they go to the dress store, what catches their eye? How does it catch their eye? And when they realize that it caught their eye, stop and take it all in, right?
Yeah.
Where was it placed? How close to the front? How close to the back? You look at a lot of C stores, smoke shops, whatever, the registers are right by the door, right? They don't want people buying something in the back and then grabbing stuff and running out the door, right? I get that, right? Loss prevention, shrinkage, whatever. But then they're limiting themselves to what's going on because now they're creating, in my mind, a traffic pattern straight to one place, straight to the other.
Yeah, you go to the
right?
counter and then you leave.
Yeah. And then it's so funny. You see some of these, straight aisles and all that stuff, and I get it. But we're not talking about, a store doing $150, $200 million a year with, probably 12 to 15,000 customers a day. You got 40 customers, 50 customers, 100 customers a day. Mix it up a little bit. Make them walk through some stuff, right? Make them look at all your stuff. Because if you put the number one, we had, I love saying this, at Walmart, I had a boss that gave us a challenge to go to a store that's actually one of our customers right now for Drip Drop.
Yeah.
It's a large smoke shop chain. And go there and evaluate yourself based off that. So I walk in, the first thing I see is Marlboro Red. I'm like, oh, and it's like $1.50 cheaper than me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's $1.50 cheaper. And then boom, I see, Bud Light is $3 less for a 24 pack. And, and I'm telling him these things and he goes, they're better than you. I said, well, they're breaking the law in Idaho by selling the beer cheaper than us. So,
Yeah.
But anyways, the thing that I did notice is for me to park my car and grab a pack of smokes and get out was under 2 minutes.
Yep.
For me to do that in Walmart was almost eight minutes, right? And so you have the convenience, so you're going to get the people. So then let's think about what the store should look like, right? If you put what they're after right at the front of the store, I think you're making a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you need to get them to walk through the other stuff. And everybody's like, I have to make this. I have to make this much money. Did I say it? Did I use an accent right there? I apologize.
You did. You did.
That was my Scandinavian accent.
Yeah, well, sure it was, Brett. We deal with a lot of Scandinavians.
I am getting so censored. Anyways,
gonna have to bleep that out, guys.
You're talking about margins. Make them walk through the margin, right? And I told a very large trade show this about a month ago. If you put the biggest draw in the middle of the building, half of the building is never going to get looked at. Sure. Right? What's the number one item in any grocery store? It's milk, it's eggs, it's butter, it's the basics.
Yep.
Back of the store.
And alcohol. And it's at the very back of the store. Why? Because they got to walk through everything that makes money. Well, that's not right. Do you know how much money they make on produce? That's the very first thing you see. There's so much money. You can throw produce away and make money.
Yeah.
Right? You can throw clothing away and make money. It's like a license to print money. So if you've got those categories, like let's use something we have, for example, glass, socks, all these things.
Sure.
Make them go through that. Right. The other thing I'd say to finish that, you always want to put all these things. Oh, this is my best item. I put it right at the register. Put it behind the register. Put something that makes a ton of money, right? Nobody puts Marlboro Reds right at the register. Why? Because are they making money on it? Are they making a nickel?
Yeah.
I mean, 15 cents on that pack,
8 to 12
right?
cents,
8 to 12 cents, right? So, and then they've got Zyn right there. You're not making that much money on Zyn, especially because everybody's running specials.
Yep.
So put it at the back and put something right here that makes money.
Like
Don't put
juice
phone
head
cables.
pouches. Like juice head pouches. I did that at Stinker.
Juice head pouches.
Yeah. So the margin on juice head pouches was like 50%. Because I got a really killer price from Scott Worthington. And when you look at like Zyn, the margin there is like 11%, maybe. And so like we kind of, you have to stay within contract on the back bar because Altria and Swedish Match, who owns Zyn, will come after you for that. But we absolutely tried to feature the juice head pouches more because the margin was so much better on that.
Or maybe
So
you put a display up or a little
sign or whatever it is, but you highlight those products that make you the most margin. And in a smoke shop set, so like, you know, I was buying a lot of e-liquids for our friends next door.
Sure.
And the way I built the planograms, or mods as they would call them at Walmart, you always put your best margin item at eye level.
Yeah.
And then you put like your top brands on the top shelf because you get that like top shelf kind of thing, like, you know, when you're at a bar, like the Grey Goose is on the top shelf. So, but the thing that's going to move the most and give you the best margin, you put that at eye level where people are looking straight on at it from across, and it has to be back bar stuff. So they're from the other side of the counter looking at it, but that's what you feature on that eye level shelf is definitely the items that A, you're getting the best margin out of, and B, you're getting the best numbers out of, like a rebuy, and that's what you keep. That's like the premium spot aside from like counter space.
Yeah. So you're trying to get, I mean, you're trying to get people to at least walk past everything that you're selling, that you're making the most money on.
Well, like when I had vape stores, and even a lot of the vape stores that I was involved in over the years that are still in the Valley, we set up a formula where your juice was on the back wall, and your mods and your tanks and your coils and everything was in between, and anything new that you were selling or anything you brought in new, you had to walk to the back wall where they're coming in for juice 90% of the time.
Yep.
And that way they can see everything in the stores they're coming in, and maybe they not buy something that time, but the next time they're in, they know where it's at.
Yep.
And they can turn around and buy it. And then of course the counter space is valuable, and you got to pay for that in a lot of facilities because it's in big demand. And the only way you're going to get it is to grease the pockets of the owner of the chain of stores or the location that you're trying to get that premium space for, because it's at a premium and they're going to charge for it.
Slotting fees. Right?
Yeah,
So
no,
I mean, these are all things that people need to know about as shop owners for sure, and most of them probably do unless they're new to the industry. But you always want to create that traffic pattern to where and then the things that they need on a regular basis, like coils and stuff, are always behind the counter because you don't want to display those, and they know what they need and they tell you about it, and then you have it right in front of the area where you have new mods and new equipment or new whatever you want to sell, and that creates conversations with the customers that you have the opportunity to sell them. And
sure.
But Brett, that's why 1 in 82 exists at Walmart, right? The impulse.
Well, it's the department 1 in 82, which is candy and the impulse items. Yeah, it absolutely is.
Clip strips.
But more to the point, you're right. That's the last ditch. So when you think about it, you shouldn't walk up to a register and see the prime vape right there, right?
Yeah.
What you should walk up to is the thing that somebody's just going to grab and spend $2 more on, right?
Add-ons.
So what you're talking about, really the great point, is the apparel, right? You go to any store that is grocery and GM, and the apparel is right by the front, because you got to walk through all that money, because that's 70 margin, that's 80 margin, that's a ton of margin, and that's where they're going to make, even if they get you to buy one thing on top of $250 in groceries, they probably made as much on that shirt as they did on the $250
That's
groceries.
crazy.
Shop for groceries
I didn't
lately,
know that
Brett?
there was that kind of margin.
250.
100%. That's exactly
What are you buying for one?
I'm not shopping at that store anymore. I want to illustrate your point though about placement. I had an opportunity to travel with a great company called Drip Drop to a trade show in the ABQ in New Mexico.
Yep.
And I went.
That's a scary place.
Hit a bunch. It's a blast. I love that.
No,
town.
it's awesome, but it's the shit gets real.
Go
out
to
there.
Sadie's and have the green chili. It's amazing. So I went to this really big glass shop.
Yep.
Walked in, I couldn't believe how big it was. It was huge, and it had literally, I stopped counting, like 450 pieces of glass on this wall. It had a paper section. It had literally walls of rolling trays. I'm like, that's a lot of rolling trays.
Sure.
But then it had these showcases with glass that were like, there was a $5,000 piece of glass in there, and I'm like, this is insane. It had everything. It had Hush. It had OPMS. It had all these things.
Yeah.
Other brands. And then literally 2 doors down in a little strip mall is a dispensary.
Yeah.
And so that glass shop, while I was in there, I wanted to talk to those guys. I wanted to introduce myself, but we have a thing in our company. If there's a customer there, we don't interrupt anything. We get out of the way. So I literally never had a chance to do anything but say hi because they were busy. I go 3 doors down, and here's the dispensary, and they have like these signs up and these little ropes that you follow, right? And the registers in the back. And around the register it's showcases. It was actually an old jewelry store.
Sure.
And in the showcases, literally, here's one rolling tray that's marked $19.99. Here's one grinder that's marked $19.99. And on the back on carts that I could tell they wheeled into what looked like the old jewelry safe was all the product that they sold at the dispensary, the flour and such,
Sure.
and the pre-rolls. And they did just like the worst job of merchandising that they could possibly do. Right.
Yeah.
They didn't lead you through everything. They didn't give you any options. They didn't give you any pricing
Especially
tiers.
when it's a guided
You
tour
have
like
this
that,
choice,
man.
this choice, and look at all this stuff. But when you got back there, they're like, "Oh, smell this one, smell this one." I'm like, "You're talking to the wrong cat, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know what you got here." So that part of it they did right. One of the things that I'm frustrated by is dispensaries have all this attention. It's crazy to me to see somebody go to a dispensary and spend $40, $50, $60, $100 and then go find a glass shop or a head shop to buy everything else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why doesn't a dispensary capture that? Well, we don't want to do all this. You can do it. It's easy.
Yeah.
I finally found one that just had simple selection. All the stuff was right here, and I was like, God, they're doing it right. And you could tell it was selling because it wasn't perfectly full. It wasn't dusty.
Every new industry that starts out always has their things they do.
They got to learn. Yeah. And I
mean,
think that
They're going to get more
a lot of time
robust.
they do
over
a
time.
lot of that
Monetize
stuff
your
out of-
retail space, man.
out of
Like,
the legalities
Yeah.
that they think they might be held accountable to, and like is that going to be treated like cigarettes as a back bar item? And even though nobody can go in the store unless they're ID'd and 21 and
right.
and show everything, including probably your social security to get into some of them.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of that's just because unfortunately our regulations don't give clarity to people that are starting a new type of industry.
Sure. They're
And
just
so
they're in
people
their
are
infant
just-
stages.
They're guessing on what they can and can't do.
But who's the big? Is it Planet 13? Am I saying that
In
right?
Vegas,
That's in Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the first dispensary I ever walked into, and I was instantly in retail mode. I'm like, check this out, and you get snaked. You don't get a free roam. You get snaked, and you are walked through
This is a
so
guided
much
tour,
money.
man.
Yeah.
There's 500 hats.
Yeah.
And I'm like $40 for a hat.
It's like trying to leave Ross dress for less. It's like
Yeah.
a maze.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
shit
Exactly.
everywhere.
Perfect,
The wallets
right?
are up there.
It's
Yeah.
the best thing I've ever seen in a dispensary where then you get up front and then you get the menu, right? And would you like some hors d'oeuvres? I'm like, well, fancy that.
Yeah.
But even up front, there was still merchandise. And if it, like I gave the advice, go look at your competition. You go to Albuquerque and 128 dispensaries, just an ABQ
Sure.
general, right? And we went to 11 in an hour or an hour and a half, and empty, rocking and rolling, right?
Yeah.
7 Clover, is that you? I don't know. It's something like that. Great shop.
Sure.
Everything's merchandised with the great little shop. So maybe go to your competition, see what's not good, and go to competition, see what is good, right?
Sure.
Because
Because at the end of the day, merchandising is everything, and how you set up your stores. Absolutely.
and the other thing is merchandising is probably the easiest thing in the world. You just put it where they can get it.
Based off of something that you touched on top of merchandising, pricing, margin, those things obviously are, those are elementary level words that you learn in the very beginning of opening a store or getting into business in general. But this is a Troy thing, because we actually were just talking about this at Drip Drop, just as kind of the way that we've modeled how we do things, holding price point, holding MSRP, trying to control that the best we can, and why that's important. So, could you touch on that?
Yeah, I think you're referring to the conversation we had about the fact that when we go into stores across the country, we see different retail price points on products that we've set a retail price point for, and we recommend that you're going to get the most turns and the most value, and you're making your margin on it already. But it's disheartening to go into stores that you have a $19.99 retail value on something, and they're charging $35 for it just because they think they can.
Sure.
And
They don't have to.
It
just being
hurts the
greedy.
consumer. They're being greedy, and at the end of the day, it slows down the turns for us as a supplier for them, and it's frustrating. And if you can't pay your bills on doubling your money, you're probably in the wrong business. You probably need to do something different.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the industry for over a decade on both sides of the table as a buyer and a seller.
Sure.
I used to have very, very heated conversations with people. I'm like, what does the fucking S and MSRP stand for? And mostly it was because I was trying to save my customers money, not the other way around.
Sure.
Because like, you can't sell it below this. I'm like, why? I'll take it out back and pee on it if I want to. I paid you for it. You got a $180,000 purchase order for me. I'll do whatever the hell I want. Sure. The S is for suggested, but being on the other side of the table.
I've been waiting with bated breath. I'm just like, what does it stand for?
Suggested. And but on the other side of the table, you can absolutely watch people just destroy the market by being greedy and overcharging on things that they don't have to. And then you call them and they're like, yeah, it's really slow. I'm like, what do you have it priced at? Well, like $4 above what the MSRP is. I'm like, of course it's slow. You just price yourself out of the market, man.
Yeah.
Like,
and that might work for a
yourself in the
couple
foot.
years, but at the end of the day, people get wise to that
Yeah.
and they go somewhere else and they find another
if
person
it's
that's
$4
willing to do
cheaper
it
next
for
door,
more reasonable price points and margins on their side.
Correct.
And, yeah, it's just
Well, and as a store
it's a
owner,
losing scenario, in my opinion.
yeah, as a store owner, you got to understand also that whoever's selling it to you wants you to sell it too. So they've done, probably, at least if they're doing things correctly, they've done some market analysis and they've priced it. There's a lot of reasons why it was priced that way. And yes, you could sell it for less, or you could sell it for more, but to price it down to the ground will hurt you, and to also blow it out, you'll lose sales. There's a lot of
Science that goes behind
yes,
it.
there is.
There's
a lot of
absolutely.
market
Well,
analysis.
and let me talk to you about lost leaders, to price it down to the ground, right?
Yep.
You look at the biggest lost leader I can think of in my brain in the grocery world is Best Foods mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Until COVID, it is real. Until COVID came out, everybody that sold Best Foods mayonnaise probably lost money on it, right? And that was just the thing, is Best Food. Everybody sets their watch by the price of Best Foods mayonnaise. I mean, who cares? It gets people in the building. It's not like it's applied to everything. So, on that MSRP, people are sensitive to the price of mayonnaise, right?
Sure.
Especially in America, because it's like, for
We
Christ's-
love our mayonnaise.
Yeah, I butter my bread with mayonnaise. You can tell.
Yeah, Brett bleeds mayonnaise.
I
dude.
bleed mayonnaise.
He's a mayonnaise guy.
But you look at doing it across your board and you think you're getting customers in, but you're making less money. And that's why,
Sure.
Imagine our industry where everybody had all the Kratom shots at MSRP.
yeah.
Right? There wouldn't be any of the guys, I can get you a Kratom shot for $5. The MSRP thing is really important. To highlight that, I took a salesman on a virtual trip. The town that I operated a store in California is 1,200 people. Sure. There were 3 smoke shops in that town, and none of them were our customer. And I pulled them up on Google Maps, and there's pictures inside of the store and everything, and guess what? I could see pricing.
Yep.
On Hush Platinum, 3 stores within a quarter mile of each other all had 3 different prices.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I could tell which store just by how clean it was and how merchandise it was getting traffic. Well, guess what? This store wasn't getting traffic, so what do they have to do? They have to raise their prices.
Yep.
They have to make more money off the customers they do get. And then what happens? They go out of business.
They price themselves out of the market.
So if you get yourself on an MSRP, or if it's a competitive market, be within 10% of MSRP. I wouldn't go below that, because all you're doing is you're going to go a step further. They're going to go a step further. You're going to go settle.
There's a race to the bottom at that
Dear
point.
FTC,
Charge
this is
the
not price
MSRP
fixing.
and put in a loyalty rewards program for your customer base, and you solve both problems. They're getting it cheaper than what they normally pay for it, and they're tied into your company because they already bought 3 and they got to go buy the 4th one to get the 5th one. And so,
Yeah.
at the
I
end
mean,
of the day,
one thing that you touched on that I think is really important is lost leadership. At a C-store level, it's generally going to be your fountain beverages and your hot dogs. If they know, like a customer knows, they can go in there and get like a $1 large soda. That's why McDonald's does any size $1.
Sure.
And they can get a really cheap hot dog. Well, they're also probably going to go buy like a Pepsi or like a vitamin water, which that's where you make your better margins on, are the extra add-ons they buy. So yes, we're losing money on these 2 items, but they're cheap.
Yeah.
But that gets the customer in the door. And then the 3 other items they pick up to go with that, we've covered the spread there. We've made more money that way. And so like lost leadership's a super important part of like retail. Like,
Girlfriend, you see how I'm staring at you? You try to tell me you're losing money on a fountain drink, I'm just going to come across
well,
this table.
fountain drinks are, but
Yeah, okay. Because we're making 9,000%.
Are diapers lost leaders? I've heard that before.
Not anymore.
used
Honestly,
to be?
in this economy right now, no matter what anybody tells you, there's no lost
Okay,
leaders.
I-
Everything
I-
is marked up
I'd
so
heard
much
that somewhere. I
because
don't
in our
remember
capitalist
where.
society, every major corporation is trying to make as much money as they can
Sure.
while they can, because they know it's going to end. So right now,
Yeah.
if you've watched groceries, gas is coming down because it's an indicator that consumers are choosing not to drive because they can't pay their gas bill, they can't eat food.
Yeah.
Right? So it's there. I want to talk about customer loyalty program, but
Yeah, please do. Let's get
everybody's
into
brought
that.
it up, and I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to think it's crazy. If you follow MSRP, if you have the best items that your customers want at the right price, and you don't mess with your customers, that's the best loyalty program you'll ever have.
Yeah.
They will come back to you because they thank you. The customers vote with their dollars. Right. And, oh, I get a free vape after 10 vape. You know, Subway has the punch card. I ain't got time for your Subway punch card. Right. I can get a better sandwich faster somewhere else that I don't have to worry about a punch card system. Right. So before you institute, if that works for your company, great.
Yeah,
I'd love to look at it. Let's go for it. But if you operate in a way that you have the products they want at the price they want it at, and you don't mess with them, and every so often you're like, hey, thanks a lot, I'm going to give you 50% off today just because I know you. Right. You'll get to know your customers that well.
Sure.
Right. I think loyalty programs can be snipped out by customers like an extended warranty.
Yeah.
Something's not right here. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do these reward. I'm not saying the suggestion is wrong. I'm saying a lot of ways I see them get run
implementation
is wrong.
incorrect.
I think a good point that you're trying to make here is that if you're going to use a loyalty program like that, you can't just be slitting their throats in other places. You gotta treat them good across the board.
Amen.
And think it out and find the right system to track it and to keep your database in. And there's a lot of different ones out there that you can use.
You had one at Variety. I remember.
I mean, sure, we started with punch cards back in the day because that was the way people did it. And you know, you did it just like Subway did it, like you referred to. But at the end of the day, as technology progresses, you get introduced to new systems and new things that you can bring in to your store to be able to track your customers and keep their data and have their emails and send them emails and do text messaging programs and communicate with them and bring them in on sales days and things of that nature. And if you do all those things really well, you're going to probably have, as long as you're in a good location and have the right selection of inventory, you're going to do a good business.
Sure. Yeah. And to continue on the conversation about MSRP, not MSRP anymore, but another part of that that's equally as important, I think, is to also try as much as you can, especially as a manufacturer. If you're a manufacturer and you're selling into distributors, you have to put forth the effort to make sure that the pricing is as uniform as you can make it, because that's something that we've ran into big problems with. You go and you start to sell a brand and you sell the shit out of a brand, and then they sell it to a distributor in a state that maybe you have a big presence in, and that distributor decides to sell it for 50 cents cheaper than you. Now what? You start either a race to the bottom or you are losing customers, and it really kind of like falls onto the shoulders of like a vendor agreements or control in general. And we've talked about that. I feel like that's as important as trying to hold the line of MSRP is also holding the line of selling to wholesalers.
It starts with the brand.
Yeah.
If you don't, and that's why a lot of people do business with Drip Drop, is because at the end of the day, we hold pricing very well. We don't discount. We don't, we'll have specials and things like that sometimes, but we don't make deals and just give things away. We have pricing that we set up that everyone makes the margin they need to make all the way through. If you're not happy with that margin, go buy it somewhere else at the end of the day. That sounds bold, but
it is
that's
what it
all right.
is. Yeah.
I'm just telling the truth. That if you want to do business with the people that are going to do good business, they're going to probably do the things that we do for that reason, because it protects the brand that's in your store. It's not being sold $3 cheaper at the store down the street because of the fact that they were able to buy it $1.50 to $2 cheaper from the guy up the street that didn't negotiate as much. It's just, it is what it is. And take it or leave it, and it's a really good brand, and it's going to move really well, and you should carry it.
Yeah.
And the reason you should carry it is because everyone carries it, and if you don't have it, they're going to leave and go somewhere else to get it.
Sure.
And that's a strong brand. When you can build a brand like that, then you've gotten there at the end of the day, and you've done your job, and so you just can't mess with that.
Yeah, and Drip Drop brings support in a lot of ways. It's like, it's not just because there's people, there's anybody could be a sales guy and then, get a hair or get brave and decide like, well, fuck this. I'm going to be a distributor now. And they're going to go, rent out a 12 by 12 office downtown, and they're going to 3PL or, they're going to set up some sort of drop shipping thing, and they're going to go and not be able to service you in the way that a place like Drip Drop can. Like we offer, like, who's sending Tory Roberts to 100 and something managers? Who's doing that? You know what I mean? Not everybody, there's probably distributors out there in this space that are doing things similar, but all of the programs that Drip Drop has as far as returns go, as far as, the support going and doing sets. Like we sent Doug, the owner, Doug Campbell, who you may or may not want in your store. Who knows?
It's a hit or miss.
We love him. Everyone loves him, but he's also crazy.
Yeah.
But
maybe with a ball cap, but not that silly gangster hat that he wears.
He'll come to your store and he'll put product on the shelf with his hands, and he'll talk to your manager and he'll buy you lunch. And he's that guy.
Hang POP signs.
He'll hang signs and
and we'd love to do it for all of you if you give us a call and let us know where you're at.
Yeah.
Me, Doug, and Base.
We'll send them out. They'll get out there and they'll help you out. And these guys, they enjoy it. They make it fun, And who else is doing that? It's Doug's. I don't know how he keeps going, but he just loves it, And it's inspiring for us to watch an owner who's willing to go, kneel down on a knee at a trade show and set up a 4-foot display and make it perfect, and step back and look at it and get real close and look at it, and then yell at you because you did it wrong. You know what I mean? Like he cares so much.
Even though you didn't do it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you didn't do it. No, Quincy did it. Whoever did it doesn't matter, But someone's getting in trouble. But he's that guy, through and through. And so is everybody here. That's the thing. It's like we actually give a shit. Everybody cares, and it's part of it's more than just we're selling you something and goodbye. It's we
get a lot of in this industry, man.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, thanks for buying. I'll see you next month.
Yep.
Like the difference, like when me, Doug Base and I went out and did like 150 Vapor Maven stores in person.
Yep.
We pre-shipped all the product, but like we had a system. Like Base would come in, we'd get there first. He would do his razzle dazzle, like look at me, I'm tall, dark, and handsome, charm,
big, beautiful
shit.
man.
Look at how beautiful I am. And then Doug would, he'd go over pricing and why it's important to keep MSRPs where they are. And look, we already brought you price signs. So the MSRP is more than suggested at this point because we printed the signs for you. And we're going to put them in front of the product ourselves.
Yep.
So we know where your pricing is at. And then while we were ripping boxes open and setting the stuff, I would go over all the educational pieces like what is Kratom? Why is it important? What shots are for what things? What shots are for the other things? And by the time we left, like all of the store managers and the employees were just like, I've never seen a vendor do this before. Like the owner of the company was on his knees for 20 minutes setting up a 4-foot case while the other two guys were running around hanging signs and then teaching us everything we need to know.
Yeah.
And then we leave everybody in the store with a $40 gift card.
Yep.
Go buy yourself lunch. Thanks for letting us interrupt your day, that kind of stuff. But you don't see that level of concern and customer service from a lot of other distributors. They're like, here's your stuff. We'll get it to you on time.
Yeah.
See you
You're
next
lucky
month.
if they answer the phone sometimes, It's nuts. It really is.
Do you know how you can tell just by looking at Tori he's a buyer?
How?
He's never got the same vape ever.
No. Oh, he's got
Right?
two in front of him right now.
He hasn't paid for a vape in like 12 years.
No, have not.
And then when you go to his desk, you don't even know which one to choose, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just, and he's just like, huh. And then you'll just, tomorrow they're all new again.
You should
It's
see
just
his
magic.
garage. You should see his garage.
I walked around and gave everybody in the warehouse a gift yesterday. I have a bunch of samples that I had, and I walked around and gave everybody a gift. And sure as the fucking sun rises, Tori took the vape out of the
course.
box. Yeah.
I'm always testing these things. It's like the way
Oh,
my brain works.
He's testing in
It's
him.
research, Brett.
It's research.
But I'll stand outside with like 5 in my hand, and people are like, "What are you?" I'm like, "I'm playing the pan flute, man." Like,
I remember when I owned my stores, I used to go into bars and I'd have 4 or 5 vapes in my
we just
pocket.
look at
By
you
the end
like-
of the night, I had 2 or 3 girls sitting next to me vaping on all my vapes with me and hanging out and having a great time.
Catching
And,
your
Were any of them
cuties.
named Janet?
no, 'cause she don't like the vape.
Not
She
back
smokes.
then.
Oh,
This is before Janet.
Yeah,
that's good.
As we were all talking about everybody's accolades, especially Brett. Brett's kind of the most, prestigious of us all. I want to. Come on, Brett. You
Okay.
are. You are.
Alrighty.
I want to. We're always focusing on the good. I want to know the bad right now. So I want to know about what's the biggest fuck up that you ever had working for Walmart, Brett. That you caused. That was your fault that you had to eat. I just want to know. I'm going to ask everybody, by the way.
You know what? Actually,
Don't tell me none.
well, it's easy to say.
That you can admit.
I'll admit to this.
Yeah. Nothing illegal.
I was the store that I managed very early on. The boss came in and just started ripping on me because the competitor had this for this price and this for this price and this for this price, and poking me. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And said, not the one and said, this will not happen again.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right.
Absolutely.
So what did I do? I just set up a thing, and I knew a guy that worked for that other grocery store, and I knew when they changed their price. I knew what they did. So literally, thank God they're open 24 hours. They set it up. I'd have somebody there at 4 a.m. and before the boss walked in, all my prices were cheaper. So one of the trademark items is Nally's chili.
Yep.
It's just a can of chili. It's just a can of chili. But that's the one that they went after and always advertised that my price was lower. So I actually got that from the MSRP of $1.50 down to 48 cents. And what happened is they went lower, I went lower, they went lower, and it happened for about 5 months. And I was spending all this money and my sales were going down, right?
Yep.
Fast forward about 12 years. And we get this home office audit because our grocery prices are something's crazy. Walmart actually opened a Sam's Club in the Treasure Valley. And the Sam's Club executives came to my store because I was only a couple miles away. And they're like, your prices are too low on all this stuff. I was cheaper than the warehouse store.
Yeah.
They're like, well, you're going to have to raise your prices. And I said, I'm like, thank God my badge says Walmart, not Sam's Club, because I ain't listening to you.
Yeah.
And I was wrong.
Yeah,
But, then this whole thing happened. And Walmart, we know, has 3 pricing tiers. If you're really rural and it costs more to ship there, it costs a little bit more. We know that, right?
Sure.
If you're in the city and it's super competitive, it costs a little bit less, right? We're supposed to be in the middle. Well, we discovered there was actually 5 Walmart pricing tiers, and one of them was ended up being Walmart Boise. At the time, our 9 stores were the cheapest 9 stores for grocery in the United States of America. I was the number 1 sales volume store, and we found 2 stores that actually did more food than me, but like a gallon of milk. I was talking to the 2 managers because I'm like, you guys ain't what you think you is. They're like, I beat your store by $10 million. Their gallon of milk was $4.84. Mine was $1.78.
Yeah.
I sold 2 times more milk than them. If I was selling their price, you would know this number. I'd be a $225 million supercenter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which would be lights out ridiculous, right?
Sure.
Especially up in Nampa.
So
Yeah.
the reason I bring all this up is I got stuck in that because I got scared. They lowered, I lowered. They lowered, I lowered. And you look at like an OPMS shot. I can go to Denver, Colorado right now, and OPMS is between $17.99 and $22.99 a bottle.
Yeah.
I can go to Manhattan right now, and it's $12.99. Everywhere. Every bodega's got a $12.99 because some people got in their head, I'm going to get all this customer. Now, guess what? Everybody's stuck making no money on this high turn item. So what does it create in our industry? People come up, give me a price on paper. I want a price on paper. This is stupid. No, this is the price we sell everything for, right? And then they get mad. Oh, somebody's selling it cheap. Well, guess what? Stop doing your stupid little games, right? So when you do what should be done and you treat your customer fair with the price, and yes, customers want to save a little bit of money, right? I get that, but these people don't realize they've locked themselves into these ridiculous prices, making no money because they thought they would get more sales out of it. And what they actually did is they got less sales.
And now they're trying to make it to where nobody makes money along the whole chain, clear back to the original brand manufacturer, because they're all fighting over trying to meet that price point that is unrealistic in the first place, because it goes back to science and math. It is what it is.
Yep.
If you're gonna have
Just
the margins that
keystone
you need to
items.
make to pay your bills,
Right.
you need to charge X, and the distro needs to make X, and the store needs to make X, and everybody needs to make their margin in order to be in business. And sometimes the consumer wins at the end of the day in these kind of environments, but not for long, because eventually the stores have to close their doors or change their business model. one or two.
Sure.
I've definitely found that, like, as a rule of thumb, and I said this earlier in your office today, if you're at retail and you're buying at wholesale, everybody eats if you keystone the item in this space,
Yeah.
usually in the alt space. So,
Yeah.
if you buy something for 10 and you sell it for 20, you're not being greedy. You're right where you're supposed to be. But the distributor makes their money, the manufacturer makes their money, the customer gets a good price, and the store gets a 50% margin. So you're doubling your money on every item, and you don't need to triple your money on every item. You're going to slow down your volume. So there's a magical balance between volume and pricing. So some people get it in their heads when they own stores, like, oh, I'm just going to price something $8 above what it should be. And if I have enough foot traffic, it'll sell sometimes. But like, what's that thing? Like, I'd rather make 10 cents 100,000 times than $100 like 50 times or
it's easier to
something.
sell something or a million things for a penny than one thing for $1 million.
If I
Correct.
could get this industry to understand turns,
Yeah.
just don't, hey man, I sell 50 a week. you could be selling 200 a week.
Right.
And it's, so those 200, you make $1 less, but you made a whole lot more dollars.
Correct.
And nobody will listen to that. I want to pull my hair out.
It's like pulling teeth, man. Herding cats. Like they just,
Sure.
I got a way to do it. Like I'm a big shot. I own a store. So like, but I'm like, hey, like there's a lot of science and time and effort that goes into this, especially for bigger companies, which I've worked for. Maybe you should listen. Like,
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. And
I think most store owners do. There's a lot of really good store chains out there, and a lot of good store owners, and a lot of good operators. But
they operate the right way, right?
There's the characters that are out there that are at the end of the day really don't know what they're doing, and they're just trying to make their way.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, hopefully this can help them think about some of these topics if they watch this video and analyze their way of thinking and maybe realize that they're doing it wrong.
Well, that's a good lead into the last point that I want to kind of cover. And that's, we've talked about, informing stores about, products and educating them, but how do we make sure that's trickling down to the customer? How do we educate our customers and keep them in the know about what's coming out, what a fair price for this thing is? And, they're obviously, we're leaning on the stores to do that, but what is it? Marketing? What is it? Is it, having information on the website? How do you keep your customers informed?
It's marketing, social media, influencers. That's a lot of the ways we do it. POP in the store, descriptions of a product, pricing on the product in the store on the POP, things of that nature that you can add to your marketing to where you can educate the customer a little bit. In the past, we've tried a lot of different things. A lot of videos, TVs are being put into these stores, and they'll have promotional things on
rotating
those
images and
so
stuff
there's
like
a ton of different ways to approach it, but at the end of the day, it's a challenge for sure.
We're like Doug setting your set for you and us putting our own price tags right in front of the product, which are actual MSRP.
Yeah.
And then we go to the register and we make sure that when we ring one, it is the right price.
Sure.
If you do that, and it's already coded in their system correctly, and you've set the price for them, they don't tend to change it on you.
Sure.
And then we reinforce that with like, it works at this price. It does not work at any price higher than this.
Yeah.
One of the big controversies in all type of retail is pre-pricing stuff and having the MSRP on the actual item.
Like an Arizona
iced tea.
Like an Arizona tea, things of that nature. It's a really hard, and it's done a lot with beverage, but more so than anything, but it's really hard to do that model because it doesn't always work for a store owner, and they don't like that, and so they won't buy it.
Sure.
So a lot of people tried it, and you have to have a really strong brand to implement something like that. And if you try to do it right out the gate, it's 90% of the time going to fail, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy things. Like e-liquid companies used to try to do that to me, and I'm like, if you put the price on the bottle, next, I'll buy from somebody else, dude. Like I need to be able to set my prices,
especially because sometimes it's more than you want to charge for it.
Correct.
Yeah.
The market fluctuates.
At a bigger chain of stores, they're gonna probably come under that MSRP. Whereas at a retail, at a big wholesaler, they might try to get more for it. They might do right at it. But
you've effectively tied my hands.
And not only tied your hands in that moment, you tied your hands in 6 months where maybe you want to blow the stuff out, and then or maybe
there's a price increase now. I just
or a shortage, and you want to go up, or you need to go up.
I have to leave it at 99 cents or whatever, so like Arizona iced tea or whatever. But say Arizona iced tea increased in cost 20 cents, right? I still have to leave it at 99 cents because there's no way I can sell it for $1.29 with the 99 cents printed on the damn can.
Yeah.
People are going to look at me like, you're an asshole.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so we got to get this thing wrapped here soon. So I want to go back to what I asked before. I asked Brett, but I want to ask you and Troy, and we'll just kind of make this short. But what was again, we're talking about all our accolades and how great we are, but I want to talk about fuck-ups. What's your biggest fuck-up that you can remember? That you can admit to?
Yeah, no. There's two that come to mind. When you're... Effectively, my job for a long time was gambling with other people's money.
Yes,
that's all it is. And then you don't know if it was a good gamble or not for like 6 months.
Sure.
Because you have to wait for it to sell or not sell.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of sitting there like, oh my
waiting
God,
6 months to know if you won on a good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's
scary.
Nerve-wracking, bro. At our good friends next door, I put Cosmic Fog in that shop.
I remember that brand. Yeah.
And they were a pretty premier brand at the time. But then they went under. And they owed us like $50,000-$60,000 in returns that they just ghosted us on.
Yeah.
So I took that hit, and I had explained that one in a board meeting to Andrew Jackson, who was not happy with that at all.
Have asshole stamped on your forehead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then one time at the gas stations, the 117 stores I was working for, we had to rebuild the price book because it was just messed up. and I accidentally set an entire category to 14% instead of 49%.
Oh,
and that ran for about
good one.
2-3 weeks until we figured it out. And I got my ass handed to me for that one
Yeah.
too. I fixed it, but
Yeah. Yeah, we're all shining stars until you fuck up like that. You
right.
know?
I mean,
but that's okay. You gotta learn.
there's a ton of successes I've had, but
Yeah.
I've absolutely fallen on my like the half of the way you can exist in this industry is failing. Like,
Yeah,
and
of
then
course.
realizing afterwards, like, oh, I'm not going to do that one again.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, there's- and
I think the
there's a ton
best
of that
lesson
in here.
learned is an expensive lesson.
Yeah.
Because you will never forget it and you will never repeat
Yeah.
it.
What
You're
about you,
like,
Troy?
Every thought, you're ready.
Give me your worst.
For me, I've been thinking through this as they're talking, and a lot of what I'm going to say is probably ties into some of their comments. But for me, I've been in business a long time doing my own thing,
Yeah.
and I've made plenty of big fucking mistakes. I can
Sure.
promise you that. Just like anybody,
Douglas T. Campbell.
anybody who says they haven't are liars. But
Yeah.
for me, some of the biggest mistakes that I've looked back on in the moment, it's hard to realize it until you've been through it a few times, is getting comfortable and not paying attention to your business and
Complacency.
and not putting in the systems or the trainings that need to be put in place as you scale and you grow.
Yep.
And you
Gotta
expect
keep
your
your finger
team
on the
to hold
pulse.
it together, and then pretty soon you've grown out of your whole environment and your ecosystem that you built, and now you're floundering trying to run it properly, and all you're doing is acting in complete chaos because
Sure.
you don't have everything organized that you should. And so I've tried very hard this round with Drip Drop as we've scaled and grown a lot, and it's been tough. And I feel like we were kind of in that situation starting because of our growth. As you go through growth, every growth level, you have to change your systems and upgrade your systems and bring clarity to your employees and how things flow. And so it's a lot of that kind of stuff that you need to stay focused on. Otherwise, you can come right straight to the ground as fast as you built something if you don't pay attention. to what you're doing.
You can't be, I mean, you can chase that down, but to be ahead of it's the challenge.
Yep.
You got to be ahead of it.
Yeah,
That's why you got to have good people working
can't
for
be
you.
lazy in business. I promise you
Yeah.
that.
Got to be working.
If you're going to be successful, you have to work your butt off, and you have to outwork all your competition. And there's a reason that we've been successful, and it's because of the things that we're willing to do. Well, most of our competitors, I mean, Doug goes into these stores and these just distributors, and we had a distributor last year that he went into one of them and did a reset, and the guy looked like he was deer in the headlights. He's like, what in the hell? And Doug's like, Base was like, why are you treating us this way? You look like you're not happy, man. What's going on? We just landed 75 accounts for you the last 3 days and sold like $150,000 worth of shit. Why are you got a frown on your face? And he goes, man, I don't have a frown on my face. I just don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I've never seen a brand or a distributor or somebody selling a product come in and put this kind of investment in my business.
Yeah.
And I'm blown away by you guys.
Which to us
and I
is
already
like
know you're
another
gonna
day
be-
at the office.
I already know you guys are
what
going to
we
be the
do.
best and the most successful because nobody else is going to do what you guys do.
Yeah. Well, that's how we got to keep it. Well, I appreciate you guys coming. I would ask you, the audience, with all of the humbleness in my heart, to like, follow, and subscribe on all our socials. That's Instagram, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, at Drip Drop Distro. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Troy. And thank you, Tori,
Yes, sir.
the new face at the table.
What was your name again?
My name's Mikey.
Mikey,
Everybody
thank you,
everybody
Mikey.
knows me. I don't got to say my name anymore, you guys. I'm kind of a
Whoa.
big deal. But yeah, until next time, we love you guys. Bye.